So if the audio-video room, if the technical aspect is ready, please play the CCTV footage of Senator Bato's arrival today. The chair will recognize Senator Marcoleta, who had the floor before our colleagues suggested that we watch for ourselves. So we will be asking the OSA to identify who among those who were chasing Senator Bato were NBI agents.
Mr. President, we have seen it all. I think this is the best evidence that can prove that the good senator, our colleague in this institution, is being chased by authorities. I'm not sure where they got the authority to chase him, and incidentally, I think he's about to be captured by them for purposes of serving him or rendering him or even surrendering him to the ICC. I'd like to ask, Mr. President, what is the authority of the National Bureau of Investigation in executing, for example, even if for the sake of an argument that the ICC issued a warrant of arrest against Senator Bato? As far as I know, Mr. President, the counterpart of the Interpol, which is the serving arm of the ICC in executing warrants, the Interpol's counterpart in this country is PCTC, which is the Philippine Center for Transnational Crimes. And I check that it is now under, it used to be under the Office of the President and under the control and supervision of the NAPOLCOM. But I think it's now under the control of the DILG. So, my question is, how come that the NBI is chasing Senator Bato for an apparent warrant of arrest, which the former Senator Trillanes has been showing around that he got a warrant of arrest and he is personally serving it to the senator? The first question is former Senator Trillanes now the sheriff of the ICC? And he has been working with the Interpol, Mr. President. This is all questionable. As I said earlier, Mr. President, this is not only an assault to our colleague, but principally it is an assault, an insult to this institution. Hindi natin pwedeng palampasin ito, Mr. President. We need to protect the senator. As I said earlier, and I manifested that Trillanes himself was a beneficiary of this institution's security. Humingi po siya ng Senate Protective Custody nung panahon na kinailangan niya po ito. Ngayon, ironically, he's the one executing the very act which prevented him from being assaulted at the time. Masyado pong nakakabahala na ang nangyayari, Mr. President. I think all these people, I think we can identify all these people in due time. They did not only violate Article 145 of the revised penal code, as I earlier manifested. Former Senator Trillanes is even guilty of usurping authority, Mr. President. Hindi natin pwedeng palampasin po ito. In the meantime, I'd like to move, Mr. President, that in the light of the recent adoption of the Senate Resolution number 44, I move that Senator Bato be placed under the Senate Protective Custody, Mr. President, until he is able to get all and exhaust all legal remedies to protect himself, and until this institution is also able to do just the same. Mr. President, Article 59 of Rome Statute is very, very clear. It's very, very clear. Even for the sake of an argument that there is a valid warrant of arrest against our colleague, Article 59 still states that the person to be arrested must be promptly delivered to a competent judicial authority. in order to accomplish at least three things. Number one, to identify or to ascertain the identity of the person being arrested. Number two, whether the processes, the legal processes have been observed. And number three, whether or not his rights were protected. This is very, very important for purposes of protecting the due process and the rule of law, which our colleague can avail, Mr. President.
The motion is consistent with our rules, is consistent with Senate Resolution number 44, is consistent with precedence. So is there any objection? If not, the motion is carried.
Mr. President,
So consistent with past practices, no? Senator Bato will enjoy the protection of the law and the protection of the Senate in accordance with our rules and with Philippine laws.
thank you. Mr. President, may I have the floor, Mr. President?
Yes, Majority Leader.
Mr. President, as I was looking and watching the CCTV, Mr. President, I recall, Mr. President, every time we have a committee hearing, any member of the Senate would move to cite in contempt someone who is lying, Mr. President. So my position, Mr. President, looking at what happened to our dear colleague, and I'm gonna do this, Mr. President, whether you are in majority or minority, you are an elected official, Mr. President. And for someone, especially coming from a different agency of the government, trying to do something like that in violation of Article 147, Chapter 2 of our revised penal code, Mr. President. Maybe, Mr. President, it is right time for us, while we are having a session, to cite in contempt these individuals trying to prevent Senator Bato de la Rosa from reporting for work to do his job as elected Senator of the Republic of the Philippines. So, Mr. President, if it is a proper motion, and I would leave this to the body, that we cite in contempt these individuals, Mr. President, that would be identified in this particular video, trying to block, trying to prohibit Senator Bato de la Rosa from doing his job, Mr. President.
Yes.
I submit, Mr. President, to the wisdom of the
Is there any objection to
majority.
holding the John and Jane Does, who will be laterly identified in accordance with the CCTV, to hold them in contempt of Senate,
Then,
the Senate?
Mr. President, I was suggesting, Mr. President, and if you are, if the body is amenable to that, I will move, Mr. President, that we cite them in contempt.
Yeah.
Because, Mr. President,
well, because you made that manifestation, Majority Leader, let me say this, not as Senate President, but as a member of the Philippine Bar, and as a humble servant of our people as a senator, each legislative body has to defend itself, especially versus existential threats. When we only have 24 senators and in certain votes you need 13, and we will allow that in our premises without the proper coordination nor without the proper due process, ay pwede mong habulin na lang at hagurin yung isang senator, what can be more existential than that? There might be some reservations, but medyo ang tono pa lang sa hearings ay parang may kabastusan. hino-hold na natin in contempt eh. And for the record, when Senator Bato was chased by these agents, we were already in session. I was already standing in the podium at the side and already was making that motion. So even out of courtesy, regardless of their coordination, kung meron man o wala dito, hindi dapat hinabol si Senator. Dapat pumunta sila dito sa taas. Nakipag-usap sila. Gwardiyahin nila lahat ng pinto. Pero hindi dapat makipaghabulan sa kahit sinong senador dito sa loob. So it is really the pleasure of the body. But if we do not take a hard stance regarding that, do not regret or do not ask ourselves why tomorrow baka may checkpoint na malapit sa bahay natin at huhulihin na tayo. Because my understanding of parliamentary immunity goes to the extent of even being secure in our traveling to the Senate. Eto na sa loob na ng Senado eh. So, Majority Leader, maybe you should consult the other senators or make the motion and then... so, can we recognize first Senator Estrada?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just an additional violation of the elements of the National Bureau of Investigation who chased or who prevented Senator Bato from attending the sessions. I invite the attention of our colleagues in Article 145 of the Revised Penal Code. If I can read it to you. Violation of parliamentary immunity. The penalty of prison mayor shall be imposed upon any person who shall use force, intimidation, threats, or fraud to prevent any member of the National Assembly from attending the meetings of the Assembly, which in this case, Senate, or any of its committees or subcommittees, constitutional commissions or committees, or divisions thereof, from expressing his opinions and casting his vote. And the penalty of prison correctional shall be imposed upon any public officer or employee who shall, while the Assembly is in regular or special session, arrest or search any member thereof, except in case such member has committed a crime punishable under this code by a penalty higher than prison mayor. That is all, Mr. President.
We take note of that, Senator Estrada, and it's 100% correct. But the reason why the presiding officer has not mentioned administrative and criminal law is because we can ask the Committee on Rules and the Committee on Public Order to have an investigation. No, meaning my immediate concern is the integrity and the safety of the Senate as an institution. It isn't even about Senator Bato. They could be arresting people from the other side of the aisle or other side of the politics here. I would have the same stand that you have to coordinate first, then we have to accept that they have legal authority. If not, you give the senator the opportunity to go to court or, as Senator Marcoleta said, all legal remedies. Wala namang problema po sa legal remedies. If we go to all the precedents, you will see na eventually yung iba nag-surrender din. Pero yung korte ang nag-utos, hindi yung mga law enforcers. So my point is, we will deal with the administrative and criminal liabilities, if any, according to the findings of our committees. But right now, before us is the question of what does the Senate in plenary as a body do to protect itself. And Senator Villanueva suggested holding them in contempt. May I remind everyone that when someone is held in contempt, they are allowed to purge themselves of that contempt by either giving justifiable reason or by apologizing. My information at this point in time, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, they are still here and they are still threatening to arrest him here. So What is the pleasure, Majority Leader?
May I ask for a minute suspension, Mr. President?
Session is suspended. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, there was an earlier inquiry by this representation which led to the body's unanimous consent to move that we cite in contempt those individuals running after Senator Bato de la Rosa, trying to block him from doing his job. And until such a time that they can satisfactorily explain to us what happened, Mr. President, the body, with the permission of everyone here, that we move, that we cite these individuals in contempt. So move, Mr.
Is
President.
there any objection? If not, the John Does and Jane Does as identified individual are held in contempt. I am directing the OSAA to put in custody, Senate custody, to the said individuals and to detain them in the Senate premises. If they need assistance, you're authorized to coordinate with the Pasay City PNP until such time that those held in contempt can purge themselves of contempt, meaning to satisfy us with their explanation